Welcome to Everything Mental Health with your hosts, Chris Weeks and Maureen Edwards.
Hi, Chris. How are you doing?
I'm doing well, Maureen. How are you?
I'm really well.
Good stuff.
And I'm excited to talk about secure attachment today.
Sounds good. And where should we start? Should we just...
Well, I'm just thinking that whenever people are talking about attachment issues, they're usually talking about the ones that are problematic or the ones that might be related to codependence of some sort.
Mm-hmm.
And the secure attachment really is never sort of talked about, or it's just like, oh, this is this obscure thing that we're trying to get to, but maybe we don't quite understand it. So I thought maybe we could unpack that a little bit.
Sure. Let's just go back for a moment to the 60s and the 70s when John Bowlby and Mary Ainsworth were doing their research on attachment and developed this whole notion of attachment theory and so on. And they did some experiments with mothers in particular anyway, and their children, and a variety of ways in which they were trying to test out the kinds of relationships that the mum and the child had. By first, I mean, they would have the mum in the room with the child, and the child would be playing with toys or whatnot, and then they would remove the mum from the room and then observe how the child behaved. And
yes,
and so they developed these ideas based on the way in which the children behaved. And
that's
so
correct. Yeah.
In secure attachment, they were looking at sort of the proximity maintenance, safe haven, secure base, and distress, and how the children behaved when mum was close by or when mum was not, if they felt safe in the comfort of or if they felt secure, or if they experienced a certain amount of stress. And so then, based on that, they developed these notions of attachment, secure attachment, anxious,
Yes.
avoidant, and disorganized.
And thinking back to when I studied this in school years ago, one of the things that they noticed was when the mother was in the room with the child, and then the mother left the room and the child was left there alone, some children cried and made a fuss and freaked out. Other children looked around and then got back to playing with whatever toys.
Mm-hmm.
Other children didn't even notice if their mother left the room or not.
Mm-hmm.
So there were different ways that the child or the children they studied reacted to the mother's presence and leaving the room in these experiments.
Yes.
And one of the things, and one of the things that they noticed and attributed to secure attachment was when the mother left, the child would make a fuss, but soon after would settle into normal play,
right,
and get on with their day.
Yes. And so that would indicate that the child had a fairly secure attachment to mum and to the parent, and had a fairly positive image of him or herself even, and subsequently feeling fairly safe in terms of images of others.
Yes.
Other signs of secure attachment that that child was able to regulate his or her emotions fairly quickly. There was a little bit of a fuss, but then regulated back into sort of a fairly feeling safe.
Yeah.
Trusting others easily, sort of effectively communicating, able to even seek emotional support, comfortable being alone, comfortable in close relationships, easy to connect with someone, being able to be emotionally available even. So these are all indications of a secure attachment. Go ahead.
I was thinking that it's a lot to do, in my observation, with the transition period. When a parent is with a child and then leaves, there's this little area, this time frame where the child misses the parent, and there's the transition from, now I'm not with this mother or this parent, now I'm with whoever else or whatever else, like I'm in a room with toys and other children. And it seems to be the secure attachment, that time frame, that transitional time frame, that the child is able to go from one to another.
Yes.
With the mother or the parent, to without the mother and the parent, and then again coming back, like when mother comes back in the room.
Yes.
That was another thing that they noticed.
That's right. Where
did you want to speak to that?
Sure. The child would notice the parent coming back into the room and be happy to see the parent come back to the room, but with that, then the child is then able to go back to playing with the toys. So that sense of security and safety with those transitions, it's almost the child understands that mom may not even be gone for long. So it's almost like the environment is fairly predictable as well. And
right.
And so when mom comes back, the child is happy to see mom, but isn't showing any kind of distress over having not seen mom for a few minutes.
Yes. I think that's the thing. There is always going to be a transition from one to another, and that's okay. It's just if it's too prolonged or if it's non-existent at all.
Yes.
That's sort of the indicators that there might be some kind of, I hate to say maladaptive, but that's sort of the word that they used in their experiments, was maladaptive attachment. But yeah, the secure attachment, there. And another thing that they noticed was there was like a kind of a predictable behavior from the child. Like, yes, they were upset their mother left. They were upset that they were left in this room with children and toys, but they were soon after able to regulate. They were
Yes.
able to adapt to their new environment and have fun in their new environment.
Yep.
So I think
that pretty well captures,
secure.
I think, the secure attachment. What is interesting is then how does that translate into adult relationships?
Right.
When one
Yes.
is, when one grows up in an environment where he or she feels